Black crystal warmly greets everyone. Those who tend to overthink must listen to these words. People who are socially awkward often hesitate to express themselves in public, always appearing shy. They always think that many people are paying attention to them. But in reality, is anyone really paying attention to you? Today, let's explore the 8 reasons why you tend to overthink and end up hurting yourself emotionally. 1. Different perspectives. In reality, highly sensitive people who tend to overthink might be geniuses. But sometimes, we only see or hear a part of the story and quickly jump to conclusions. Therefore, we need to put ourselves in others' shoes to understand their perspective. What you do might seem right to you, but it's not necessarily correct. There's a story about a monk and a butcher who were close friends. The monk had to wake up early every day to chant, while the butcher had to wake up early to slaughter pigs. To avoid disrupting each other's work, they agreed to wake each other up every morning. Many years later, both passed away. The butcher went to heaven, while the monk went to hell. The monk was furious and filled with resentment, constantly appealing to the king of hell. Finally, the judge explained, the butcher did a good deed every day by waking the monk up to chant, while the monk woke the butcher up to kill. So, many things that seem right might not be. When facing problems, we should try to change our perspective. This way, we can see more and understand others better. In this world, there's no absolute right or wrong, only different perspectives and positions. When walking, you hate cars. When driving, you hate pedestrians. When working, you think the boss is too strict and stingy. But when you become the boss, you feel employees lack responsibility and discipline. As a customer, you think the seller is too greedy. But when you become the seller, you find customers too picky. In reality, no one is wrong, it's just that we're standing in different positions. Don't cultivate yourself in others' hearts, nor force others into your heart. Try to put yourself in others' shoes, and life will immediately become brighter. A young man who had just been promoted told an old street vendor, "Auntie, clearing the street is my job, but selling is your livelihood. Let's understand each other a bit. When I come, you leave. When I pass, you come back, okay?" The old lady gratefully replied, "Okay, I'll do that. But, young man, won't this affect your promotion?" Their conversation was simple but sincere. Each person, through their own perspective, tried their best to brighten each other's simple life. 2. High sensitivity. Dilly once said that she would overthink because of a casual remark from someone else. For example, when working and putting on makeup, if someone slams the door, she would worry if she had done something wrong. At home, she would continue to overthink, reflecting on whether she had said or done anything to upset others. Are you that sensitive? Artist Van Gogh was also highly sensitive. The story between him and his friend Gauguin is often attributed to Van Gogh's sensitivity, which led Gauguin to leave. In 1888, Van Gogh invited Gauguin to live with him in a small town to paint together. Gauguin agreed. Compared to Van Gogh, who had a complex and unstable mind, Gauguin was free-spirited and open-minded. The significant difference in personality, coupled with admiration mixed with jealousy and the fear that Gauguin might not like his work, made Van Gogh even more sensitive. While waiting for Gauguin, Van Gogh not only tidied up the room but also painted frantically, leaving behind masterpieces like sunflowers, the bedroom, and many others. The two lived together for over 2 months, often arguing fiercely about artistic views. After each argument, Van Gogh would regret and try to win Gauguin's favor. Sometimes, he was so anxious that he couldn't sleep, standing by Gauguin's bed in the middle of the night, crying and repenting. Gauguin woke up, saw Van Gogh staring at him in the dark, and was terrified. Eventually, their relationship was exhausted by this tension. After Gauguin left, Van Gogh became even more desperate, to the point of cutting off his own ear. Psychology has a theory called the orchid and dandelion theory. A research group randomly selected 100 children. Through testing, 80% of them were not very sensitive. Their personalities were like dandelions, with strong survival abilities. The remaining 20% were like orchids, particularly sensitive to their environment, easily hurt when facing adversity. Long-term research shows that if highly sensitive children are guided correctly emotionally, their development can far surpass that of less sensitive children. Sensitive people often have delicate emotions, strong empathy, notice details others overlook, and often achieve great success in art or scientific research. Sensitive people are like looking at the world through a magnifying glass. Don't consider sensitivity a flaw. When you accept this superpower, you'll have a rich and unique world of your own. Sensitive people don't need to care too much about others' thoughts. When in pain, they need to constantly explore their inner selves and try to accept themselves. For others, especially loved ones, cherish the sensitive people around you. Help them leverage their strengths and confidently accept themselves. Confidence and love will become the foundation of sensitive people's lives. Help them love and understand themselves. 3. Excessive internal conflict. There's a story about a little girl holding 2 apples. Her mother saw and asked, "Can you give me one?" Immediately, the girl took a bite from each apple. The mother felt disappointed and sad. In her mind, she constructed a whole story. The girl doesn't want to give me an apple, so she took a bite from each to claim she's already eaten them and can't give me one. But at that moment, the girl handed one apple to her mother and said, "This one is sweeter, Mom, you eat it." The mother took the apple, feeling both ashamed and regretful. We often see the truth, but what we think in our heads isn't the truth. In reality, we don't truly live in the real world but in the imaginations we create. Sensitive people easily interpret events negatively, so what our eyes see isn't always the truth. Only by listening can we understand better. Give love and time, because on the path of waiting, you'll find that love is gradually approaching. Writer Yu Hua said, "Mental exhaustion is essentially self-inflicted drama. Before reaching the end, our minds have already created countless scenarios. Before taking a step, we've imagined crossing thousands of mountains. This mental exhaustion is often more tiring than physical exhaustion. Therefore, live more authentically, face reality, and maintain emotional balance." Many relationships break down in silence. There's an episode of Garfield where the cat gets lost and is sold to a pet store. Garfield is very distressed, worried that his owner will miss him terribly. One morning, his owner John walks into the pet store, sees Garfield, and is overjoyed. He buys Garfield back, and the family is reunited. At the end of the story, Garfield sits under the sunset and says, "I will never ask John why he walked into that pet store that day, and John will never say that it was the last store he searched in the city, where he placed his last hope." John had run all over the city to find Garfield. One didn't ask, the other didn't tell. And gradually, the distance formed. Even the closest people sometimes can't guess each other's thoughts. When you have a mouth, speak clearly. When you have ears, listen to explanations. Don't look for signs of love when you're in love, nor look for traces of love when you're no longer in love. Don't let pride or fear of confrontation make you avoid problems. Solve problems, not the people causing them. Don't silently deduct points from each other in your hearts. That's unfair to anyone. Be clear about things, and that's how relationships last. Stubborn girls and prideful boys will eventually drift apart. The world isn't complicated. What's complicated is our psychology. We complicate simple things. Only by removing barriers in our hearts can we see different results. One of the biggest breakthroughs in my life was no longer caring about what others think of me. From then on, I was truly free to do what's best for myself. The future is beautiful, and you're wonderful too. Let's move forward together. 4. Overthinking. Next is a story reminding you not to overthink or worry about things that haven't happened. The story goes, there's a very poor family who doesn't know where their next meal will come from. One day, 2 brothers are chatting. The younger brother asks, "If we find a large sum of money, how should we split it?" The older brother replies, "Of course, half each." But the younger brother shakes his head. No, whoever finds it first gets it all. Why split it? The older brother gets angry, scolding his brother. Do you plan to keep it all for yourself? I've always cared for you, and now you're like this? The younger brother retorts, why are you saying that? You're my older brother. The two argue back and forth, eventually fighting. A neighbor passing by intervenes, asking why they're fighting. The two brothers compete to tell the story. After listening, the neighbor asks in surprise, so where's the money? The two brothers freeze, realizing they're arguing over something that never happened. Life is often like this story. We argue and exhaust ourselves over things that haven't happened, wasting time and energy. Overthinking is no different from self-torture. There's a small story once shared by a netizen. Once, he took a taxi, but when closing the door, he accidentally used too much force, causing a loud slam. He softly apologized to the driver, but throughout the ride, he felt uneasy. Every sharp turn the driver made him wonder, is it because of the loud door slam earlier? In life, an unintentional action, a word, or someone's expression often makes us overthink, coming up with various explanations. Over time, this makes us tired and unhappy. There's a canyon considered the fourth most dangerous in the world, with a rushing river below. To cross it, people can only rely on a few iron ropes stretched across the cliffs. A group of 4 people approaches, 1 blind, 1 deaf, and 2 fully healthy individuals. They take turns holding the iron ropes to cross the abyss. In the end, the blind and deaf individuals cross safely. One of the healthy individuals also makes it, but the other falls into the abyss, crushed to pieces. Why is that? The blind person says, I couldn't see the dangerous abyss, so I crossed calmly. The deaf person says, I couldn't hear the rushing water below, so I wasn't scared and crossed. The healthy person says, I crossed my bridge, not caring about the abyss or the water, just taking steady steps. The person who fell thought, this abyss is too dangerous, the water is too fast, if I fall, I'll surely die. In the end, fear caused him to lose balance. Sometimes, we're not defeated by difficulties but by the fear in our hearts. When facing adversity, don't exaggerate the difficulties. Focus on overcoming them, train yourself in challenges, and you'll achieve success more easily. The more you fear something, the more it happens. Because in life, the only certainty is uncertainty. The only thing to fear is fear itself. 5. Excessive self-prejudice. When you look at this painting, your first impression might be that it's not very elegant, as the woman in the painting is completely naked. This is a very famous oil painting in history, titled Lady Godiva, created in 1898 by artist John Collier. The woman in the painting is also a real historical figure, Lady Godiva, the wife of an earl. The couple lived in Coventry, England. The earl was known for his cruelty, imposing heavy taxes on the people for wealth. In contrast, Lady Godiva was a kind-hearted woman who couldn't bear to see the people suffer. She repeatedly asked her husband to reduce taxes, but the earl angrily refused, thinking she was being hypocritical and didn't understand life. Undeterred, Lady Godiva kept pleading. Finally, the earl, annoyed, said, if you dare to ride naked through the streets, I'll agree to reduce taxes. Contrary to the earl's expectations, Lady Godiva agreed and announced to the people that she would fulfill this condition. On that day, Lady Godiva used only her long hair to cover her body as she rode through the streets. Strangely, all the people of Coventry closed their doors and windows, pulling down their curtains, not daring to look. Coventry suddenly became a quiet, deserted town. In the end, the earl kept his promise, reducing the tax burden on the people. To commemorate Lady Godiva, John Collier created this painting. However, many people, when looking at the painting, only see a naked woman and feel it's indecent. But when you understand the story behind it, you might feel ashamed of your initial prejudice. Someone once said, only 1% of the world truly understands the truth. The remaining 99% live in preformed opinions, choosing sides to stand on, and worse, they all think they belong to that 1%. Prejudice is sometimes more terrifying than ignorance because it allows people to comfortably impose their opinions on others, like the story in To Kill a Mockingbird. The protagonist, Tom Robinson, is falsely accused simply because he's black. Tom was presumed guilty, even though the lawyer had evidence proving his innocence and defended him vigorously, but still couldn't prevent him from being convicted. In the end, in despair, Tom tried to escape from prison but was shot dead by the police. In the book, there's a line, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view. Until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. Whether shoes fit or not, only the feet know." When you mock others for running slowly or walking strangely, if you try on their shoes, you might not last a few steps. So, never think you fully understand others and casually judge them. This is the most basic respect for others and the highest cultivation of a person. 6. Overly concerned with others' opinions. There's an old man who loves reading newspapers. Every day, he goes to the nearest store to buy one. The staff there, seeing he only buys newspapers, show him no respect, always acting arrogantly and rudely. A friend of his doesn't understand and asks, "They treat you like that, why don't you go somewhere else to buy?" The old man smiles and replies, "If I get angry and go somewhere else, I'll have to go further, wasting time and adding trouble. Their bad attitude is their problem, why should I let it affect my mood?" We can't control others' attitudes, but we can control our own mindset. Being stubborn with others is using their mistakes to punish ourselves. Not being stubborn is the greatest way to love ourselves. As long as you care about what others think of you, they can control you. Only when you stop seeking external validation can you truly master yourself. In the world of melons, even swans are guilty. When thoughts aren't on the same level, respect is enough. When views aren't on the same level, smile and let it go. Don't argue over unimportant matters with important people, and don't argue over important matters with unimportant people. People who don't value you will never value you. That's why you shouldn't try to please indifference or betray sincerity. There's a child who runs up a mountain and accidentally shouts into the valley, "Hey!" The valley echoes back, "Hey!" continuously. The child is surprised and shouts again, "Who are you?" The echo replies, "Who are you?" The child, unhappy, shouts, "Why won't you tell me?" The echo also replies, "Why won't you tell me?" The child, angry, shouts, "I hate you." The echo immediately replies, "I hate you." The entire valley is filled with the sound, "I hate you." The child, terrified, cries and runs home, telling his mother everything. The mother says, "My dear, go back and shout, 'I love you.' Try it." The child does so. This time, the valley echoes back, "I love you." The child is overjoyed and laughs. The entire mountain seems to laugh with him. Sometimes, we complain that others are cold or have bad attitudes, but we don't realize that we're their mirror. If you encounter such a situation, ask yourself what you've done. If you want others to love you, you must first love them. Always be wary of what you hate. Never become the person you despise. When fighting monsters, be careful not to become a monster yourself. When you gaze into the abyss gazes back into you. Don't let the boy who killed the dragon grow up with scales all over his body. A righteous heart makes the whole world righteous. One morning, a poor father, annoyed by his crying child, tears a colorful world map into many small pieces and throws them on the ground. He promises his child, "If you can piece it back together, I'll reward you with $2. The father thinks this will take the child all morning, but in less than 10 minutes, the child completes it. Amazed, he asks, "How did you do it so fast?" The child gently replies, "On the back of the map is a picture of a person. I just pieced the person together, then flipped it over. I thought, if this person is right, then the world is right." The father smiles and rewards the child. The world's problems are ultimately human problems. If people are right, the world will be right. And human problems are ultimately hard problems. A righteous heart makes people righteous. Heaven and hell are essentially the same, differing only in thought. In the human world, when people eat together, both hell and heaven have the same setup, chopsticks 1 meter long. In hell, people only think about feeding themselves but can't get the food into their mouths. They fight, and in the end, no one eats and they starve. In heaven, people use the long chopsticks to feed each other. Thus, everyone eats their fill. The difference between heaven and hell lies in human hearts. As Wang Yangming once said about the mind without things, there are no things outside the mind. It can also be understood through the metaphor of the house and the soul. When you arrange different items in the house will show different appearances and functions. For example, if you put a bookshelf and a desk in the house, it will be a study room. If you put a wardrobe and a bed, it will be a bedroom. Similarly, each person has a different family, talent and resources. Their knowledge, career and social status are also different. This leads to the world in each person's eyes being different. Living on the same earth, some people see vast mountains and rivers, while others only see dead ends. Some people feel the smoke and fire of the human world, while others only see messy trivialities. What your soul contains, the world in your eyes will be like that. When your heart changes, the world also changes. When you change, everything around you will gradually change accordingly. Pessimism only makes life more difficult. If you don't keep a positive attitude, life will become gloomy. Don't carry negative emotions overnight. Don't worry about tomorrow's troubles, or fear things that haven't happened yet. Believe that when you are about to give up, the difficulties will soon be gone. Saturday social fear. There was a little bear who lived in a tree hole, and loved to watch the scenery outside. One day, a goldfish swam by and asked, "What are you looking at?" The little bear replied, "I am watching the scenery outside. It's beautiful, don't you see?" The goldfish replied, "It is indeed beautiful, but why don't you go out to see it more clearly?" The little bear didn't know how to answer. From then on, the goldfish occasionally brought the bear small gifts such as small fish, seafood, and things the bear liked. The bear had a lot of delicious honey in the house, and wanted to give it to the goldfish, but didn't dare because he was afraid the fish wouldn't like it. Wait a little longer, the bear thought, but one day, the goldfish stopped coming. The little bear kept looking out through the hole in the tree, but he couldn't stand the loneliness anymore. No matter how beautiful the scenery outside was, enjoying it alone became unbearable. Only then did the bear realize what he should do. The bear walked out, to the beach where the goldfish had come from, hoping to share with the fish the special things there. In the movie Green Book, there are many lonely people in the world just because they are afraid to take the first step. People with social anxiety are not because of low self-esteem, but mainly because they are too sensitive. Everyone will face ridicule, failure, and adversity. But the degree to which they feel the pain from these things is different. They are like they have no skin, and even a passing wind can make them feel intense pain. Sadly, these pains are self-inflicted, because they are always afraid that they are not good enough in the eyes of others, leading to self-doubt. The root cause often stems from childhood, where they have formed the habit of self-doubt. So remember, it is better to let children learn to be independent and strong, than to let them fall into self-doubt. As Du Manhong once said, a confident person can grasp opportunities that do not belong to them, but a person with low self-esteem will lose even opportunities that should belong to them. To overcome the fear of communication, what needs to be done is very simple. Try to care about others. You need to be a little curious, like people who like to gossip. Have you ever seen people who like to gossip are afraid of communication? When you are curious about other people's thoughts, you will become an observer in social relationships, and that helps you no longer feel insecure or worried easily. 8. Blindly strive. It's not wrong to not have the will to progress. But that doesn't mean you should give up trying, because if you don't try, you will never understand the true meaning of self-development. They let me taste the sweetness of trying, but they didn't tell me clearly where the ultimate limit of the will to progress is. I'm afraid that after trying my best, the result is still failure. I'm afraid of having to face it. Some people want to become a general manager. Some people want to get promoted. Some people want to pursue a girl. But their abilities are limited and they get stuck there. Every time they get stuck, the most important thing is the will to progress. No matter how hard they try, they still get stuck. There are many people who always try their best, but the results are still not as expected. They have tried their best, but still can't achieve the so-called successful life that everyone talks about. They want to give up themselves, but their families do not allow it, and their friends do not accept it. Life is like rowing a boat upstream. If you do not move forward, you will fall back. Just maintaining the status quo takes a lot of effort. So is there any reason not to make an effort, not to progress? However, reality tells us that no matter how hard you try, there are still factors such as money, family background, that hinder you, push you back by the strong current. That is the helplessness of small people. Some people blame us for not trying, but does trying definitely bring success? Trying does not necessarily lead to success, but if you do not try, will you be comfortable? This is the context of our generation. Everyone wants to reach the top of the mountain, but those who do not make it to the success rankings will be forgotten by those above and criticized by those below. They seem to be stuck in the middle, unable to move, or do not see the ultimate limit of their ambition. You say I have to strive, so what happens after I achieve it? You tell me to try, I will try, but no matter how hard I try, I still cannot achieve what you want. You tell me to try harder. There is no end to it. We are not afraid of the hardships and difficulties of striving, but we are only afraid of the endless ambition that brings a feeling of emptiness and helplessness. Being ambitious is a good thing, but everyone knows that it is not always rewarded. If you do not know how to manage yourself, ambition can sometimes destroy a person. People often say that the foolish bird flies first, but no one tells us when to stop. Where is the stopping point? There are many smart, diligent people who work hard, stay up all night, but they die from overwork at the age of 35. We have heard such news before and it has become so common that it has become familiar. Birds that fly forward without stopping eventually die of exhaustion. There is time to earn money, but no time to spend it. This familiar joke among office workers reflects a painful reality. For many people, working 2 hours after work has become a normal thing. To meet customers, they have to stay up late to eat, drink, and sing karaoke. Doctors have to stand and operate for dozens of hours and always be ready.